it was interesting because being measured and you looked at the media and the way it's gone. I know you said it on your YouTube when you were quite distinct in this tweet as well, saying completely correct, deserves all the respect, the title winning manager, but not sure he can or should survive this. It's the 9 defeats in 12, the goals, the performances that we're racking up or not providing at Anfield as well. I mean, I struggle to find any it's mitigation minimal. There's just no case for the defence really for Arne Slot I can provide at the moment at all.
No, outside of, I think, obviously the Diogo Jota situation, and I really do get quite a bit of stick about mentioning this and people describing it as an excuse. But how can we quantify that?
Yeah.
The absolutely shocking death of a teammate. What that must have done to the players mentally. We cannot disregard that. But I take, you have to put that to one side, and I think it could have had an effect on this season and will have had an effect on this season that we will never really know the extent of that.
Yeah.
But it's the other things we're seeing that I think are most concerning. I don't think that horrendous, tragic blow that they suffered is causing build-up issues or the lateness in the press and the inability to get that right. I don't think those are linked. And I think, the manager has had issues with the turnover, but we are in late November now and we're not seeing the best of basically any of the signings whatsoever. We're not seeing a clear idea of kind of where they were signed to be used as well either. He doesn't really know what to do with Florian Wirtz when he's fit. He's been in and out with Kirkes constantly. Isak's nowhere near it. Ekitike started well, but he's kind of dropping away a little bit now as well. So, I think the kind of mitigation now is falling away really, and it's too late in the season to kind of point to some of these issues and say, he should be given a bit more time. I do really think it's the fact that the 2 worst performances now have come back to back at this point as well. This is the point at which Liverpool should be getting better and not perfect. Maybe still they could have games where they're unlucky and the ball doesn't go in and they'll lose or whatever. But they should be playing some sort of consistent brand of football now. Nowhere near it. Absolutely nowhere near it. So, I really kind of agonised over whether to say that yesterday about that the manager is at the end, really, because you don't want to go too early. You don't want to make a fool of yourself. But equally, I think as someone who covers the club, you've got to use your position and be fair and say what you think and be, not be cowardly in kind of opting out of saying that. Because for me to watch it and think that and not say it just because I might end up looking stupid, I think that's not right to do that. So the fact is, like I say, you've seen the 2 worst performances of his tenure so far back to back. You throw in the fact that I can discount the last 4 league games of last season, but the back half of last season, the performances weren't quite at the level of the first half. Totally disastrous for much of this, certainly in performance level. You look at the underlying numbers, you look at 9 defeats in 12, the worst run since 1953. You look at the fact that the new players haven't settled at all, the fact that old players are getting worse on an individual basis collectively. And you throw that all in together, and I think it would be remiss of me not to say that the manager is under huge pressure and completely deserves to be, and in my opinion, will not get out of this situation now.
Yes, it's just almost impossible to see it. And I think recently there's just been, I don't know if you've noticed it, almost a change of tact in his press conferences, almost like it's dawning on him slightly in the way he approaches his answers and says it. And even like he did an interview, you probably saw it with TNT, where he's talking about almost, I don't really know what the answer is either as to why it is like this. It wasn't quite the bullish things we've been hearing recently. There's just been that almost, I wouldn't even say subtle, but just a change of tack in his demeanor sometimes as well.
Yeah, and I thought he looked absolutely haunted on the sidelines yesterday for the first time, really. I think he looked horrified, even after the first goal goes in and it goes 1-0 for that 10 minutes till Liverpool equalised. Just kind of the shock in his face, really. He just looked stunned. And then obviously post-match, he gets worse as the game goes on. In his post-match interviews, he just looks defeated. And, he he just doesn't look like he's got a plan to get out of this or an idea how to kind of fix it. And I think, this is the lowest moment of his managerial career so far, because I think it's been a pretty much an upward trajectory all the way. And, you only can kind of find out sometimes about managers is in the moments where they face these real setbacks. And, maybe this is a real learning point for him, and he will take an awful lot out of this. But as things stand, I just can't see that he can turn this round, and I don't think he looks like he can in terms of his demeanor. I don't think we're seeing any evidence of that on the pitch. People can go too far sometimes. They can say these things and but it's not just saying it on the basis of the results are bad. It's the underlying performance are bad, and tactical aspects of it are really bad, and all those other things that you throw in. And so it just, and I've seen it so many times as well, and we all have as football fans, is what it looks like when a manager reaches the end, and it just looks exactly like this. I've seen it 1,000 times. The kind of, the players stop looking like they're playing for you. The results get really bad to an unprecedented level. You start bringing in historical statistics to measure it all. The crowd starts to turn. I heard boos at full time at Anfield last night, by the way, which, when does that ever happen? But it was that kind of bad. So, so it's just reached a point for me where I feel like I know for a fact he's not going to turn this round. I don't think Arne Slot will be Liverpool's manager in a year's time. So what we're in a period now where he's kind of a bit of a dead man walking, really.
Yeah, for those that were still there, it was majority boos, and it was saying how many empty seats there were on there when he saw it at the same time. And even worse for him, for a team that, the fitness record was incredible last season, wasn't it? But even for this one, Alisson's out, Ekatike then limps off with what we're told it is a back issue. And Florian Wirtz, Connor Bradley and Frimpong all weren't in training. That injury situation compared to last season just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah, and it was one of the big selling points of Slot last season, is that his injury record and coming to the club, his injury record was much better. But of course, as soon as you lose that ability to select the same consistent team. You lose that ability to have consistency, and build relationships. And again, but I still think, for me, and again, this is another one where the mitigation is not quite there for him, or the justification is that I look at Klopp's kind of worst seasons, and he lost all of his centre halves in one, and had a lot more injuries on top of that. By the way, it wasn't just the centre halves, and then I look at the season where his midfield completely collapsed, and there was just nothing. It was similar to City's season last time, where the team was old all of a sudden, and it was nothing you could do. You couldn't coach your way out of that. And I look at the starting 11s that Arne Slot is able to call upon, and I don't think I'm looking at that and saying there's a fundamental flaw here that cannot be fixed or cannot be coached in a better way. He's got the tools to be playing much better than this, and they're just not. And so again, it's just hard for him to make the argument, I think, that that he can fix this, or it's just down to personnel or anything like that. Because let's be honest, that in some of those worst Klopp seasons, the underlying numbers would not have looked pretty, but you could still at least see what Liverpool were trying to do. And I think it was, for me, I kept writing all the way through that 22-23 season. I never felt myself, as someone covering the club, that the manager should be under threat, because it was so obvious what the problem was. You could just see it every week. The midfield was just goosed, and they could not do anything about that. There was no tactical way to kind of fix that outside of, he tried the kind of Trent thing in the inverting, and that did fix things towards the end, and maybe it was too late that he did that. But there wasn't a lot you could do. The fundamental flaws were there that were unfixable. This squad, this 11 that he puts out last night, are you telling me that can't play better than that? And then put in the worst performance of his tenure so far? I just don't think that's right, really. So I don't think he kind of has a leg to stand on in that front.
And even in Klopp's final season, when we were having to play Gomez and Endo in midfield and Harvey Elliott on the right, because we were still getting results, we're still fighting. That was the big thing there. And I mentioned Joe Gomez because a lot, and I've been thinking as well, like, Konate's that bad, surely Gomez gets a start. But speaking about injuries, how telling's this? Slot in his press conference saying 1 of 5 defenders, but an injection on his knee last week. He's not even playing, and he's getting an injection on his knee. And he's not always part of the group training still. that just makes the decision in the summer not to almost let him go and get a replacement. It just makes it look diabolical, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it's not a shock that he's in this position either. So you're basically going into the season and accepting that, that you've got basically three centre halves you can call on, and one of whom is Leone, who is young, and of course now he's injured. So Liverpool are in a position where they've now got two fit centre halves that they can actually call upon, and it's just not right, is it? It's not enough. It's poor planning, and it's kind of locked the manager in on Canate. Albeit I think the manager should be using Canate better, should be getting better performances out of him. But he's kind of stuck with him now. So it does look a poor decision. If you're going to let Quansah go, as they did as well, then you have to know that you are in as strong a position going into the following season. And they're not now at centre half, and that's been worsened by Leone's injury as well now. So a pretty disastrous decision all around, really.
And even the things about, we didn't see Dominic Szoboszlai at right back, which is good, but Curtis Jones is never a right back, and people talking about changing it, which we all want to see. But if Gomez is getting injections, there's no real right back. The one maybe bit of mitigation is there's only so much he can change. I mean, Calvin Ramsey trained with the first team, but it doesn't seem like he's a real option. We expect him to depart in January. It's like it might still get worse unless maybe there's a managerial change and a shot across all their bows.
But this is it, though. But equally, even with Curtis Jones at right back, I mean, he's a perfectly capable footballer, isn't he? I don't think Curtis Jones at right back was the reason Liverpool looked so utterly shambolic in that second half yesterday. You just should be seeing more for me. I think that again, that is slight mitigation there, that he has got injuries and they're all concentrated in one position. But I just think back to a Jurgen Klopp team. If the only major injury that Jurgen Klopp team had was a fourth choice centre half and a right back, they've got a real selection issue at right back, the team would be playing better, be playing in a more identifiable way, would be playing more consistently. They wouldn't be getting beat 3-0 and 4-1 at Anfield by sides who they just shouldn't be anywhere near losing to. So for me, it's not good enough mitigation. It's not losing all your centre halves and having an absolute injury crisis as Liverpool did that season. It's not having your midfield's legs completely go collectively at the same time. That's not the case here. Having those injuries at right back is not enough to justify what we saw over the last couple of games.
It really isn't. And I mean, might well be looking for a new manager, a new head coach, if you want to put it that way. January links continue. Now, people are probably thinking, similar to me, we're going to have to spend, and it may be for a top four minimum job at the moment. But obviously, if the manager changes, we'll see what that brings. You knew I was going to ask you about this. Another journo, another link. This Antoine Semenyo is now joining Ornstein, Romano, and others. Mike McGrath in the Telegraph. That the noise might well be coming from Bournemouth, but it's going to come, it feels, all the way through January or December, isn't it, at least?
Yeah, I still personally, my take on this is I still get the vibe it is coming from Bournemouth. The fact Liverpool's name's kind of being dropped in a little bit. I'm just not looking at Liverpool at the moment going, oh, Antoine Semenyo fixes issues here, or, that's absolutely what Liverpool need to do. I just really don't think it would be a smart signing at all, personally. It just doesn't fix anything. I mean, again, we're saying that it might make the press a bit better, but I don't think it's a personnel issue. I think it's a coaching issue. And he might be a slightly more aggressive runner than Gakpo, but can we just coach the press better first before you start looking at that? To add someone who is a really good defending forward, but a bit of a mediocre kind of goal deliverance, that's what you'll get from him. And I think Liverpool, if you do sign another forward, I'd like it to be a smash hit that absolutely comes into the team and is a guaranteed starter. I don't think they need this kind of flexible, Semenyo could maybe take up Chiesa's position in the squad and be a better version of that. But I don't think he's going to be much more than that for Liverpool. I don't think he's a long-term Salah replacement because he's not a natural right-sider. I think he takes way too many shots to get too few goals. I don't think he's going to get better as well. I think he's in his, he's entering his peak now. And I think we're seeing what the player is. And so for me, he's not of Liverpool level, really. And that's just my personal view. But I don't think it will be a smart signing. As I say, I've not been given massive encouragement that, they are going to do anything about it. And it just makes so much sense to me that Bournemouth are kind of desperate to get 65 million now rather than get less in the summer. So it just makes a lot of sense to me that would be true. So yeah, I know that the links keep going, but I really do feel that they are from the Bournemouth side at the moment.